development, you may be required to speak on behalf of others who are disadvantaged and unable to speak for themselves. We asked leaders in development to discuss their thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is indeed a very, very important question. It's being discussed very often in the movement and among funders. I grapple with it myself, and I saw many scenarios where the issue of representation and legitimacy was clearly problematic. Though there's already a lot of critique in the international development industry and how communities on the ground being used for personal gain by international organizations and agencies. For me personally, I recognize that sometimes I have to step forward and speak on behalf of a specific group or an individual in order to make a case for funding need or educating those in the room about the issue or a specific country or context. I try my best to do that only if I have relationship with the activists and they're actual people that I know and that I can trust that they trust me for me to speak in front of others on their behalf. Ideally, for example, at Urgent Action Fund, when we're in a situation where, for example, we're in the United Nations spaces and we have to step up and tell the room about what's happening in Pakistan or Afghanistan. If that situation comes up, we try our best to find funding to send a representative from the country directly. That is our best case. That's the ideal situation. Of course, that's not always possible. So what I do, and I would encourage others to do the same, is that when you have an opportunity to speak and share the story of people you work with, it's good to get in touch with them immediately and let them know that this is what you're going to do, and ask them if there's anything they would like you to say and any specific issues. And I think it's also very important that after the event to go back to those people and let them know and report back that this was the conversation, this is what funders or policymakers have asked, and to just let them know that this is what happened. I think something I also like to point out is that in the United States, the additional challenge is that the nonprofit world is generally dominated by people of Caucasian descent. So the diversity in the nonprofit world and among the nonprofit practitioners has been an ongoing topic. It has been a priority for many nonprofit organizations to bring in more people of color. However, especially given the current political situation, representation is a topic that everyone is trying to be very careful about. Activists, I guess the example I can give, an activist from Black Lives Matter have asked repeatedly of funders not to speak on their behalf and ensure that an actual Black activist speaks in the room. So that's a kind of an issue very contextual to United States.
I've often had to speak on behalf of people and communities in both Africa and the Pacific. Now, I'm a white Australian male, so at a certain level, me talking on behalf of these people is kind of crazy. I'm clearly an outsider. But the key, in my experience, to be able to demonstrate that legitimacy actually comes from having those first-hand relationships, those first-hand engagements with people in those communities that you're talking about. And so that way, when I am talking on their behalf, when I'm representing the issues in their lives and in the development projects that are working with them, it's important that I can then convey kind of directly their attitudes, their behaviours, share their experiences that they have told me, at times even directly quoting things that people in those circumstances have told to me. So that way it's not me expressing my opinion as an outsider, it's me being able to act as a conduit for the experiences of people in those communities who don't have the opportunity to speak into that forum that I'm presenting into.
I think that this is a really, really tricky thing to do. It's so hard to speak out on behalf of people who are, who are often not given a voice. And I think the most important question that you need to ask yourself before you're doing that is, have I given adequate opportunities for people to speak out on their own behalf? Am I stepping into this role because I feel obliged? Or is there actually an opportunity for me to lift the voice of someone else rather than doing the talking myself? And I think that that's the first thing that you should always be doing, and the first question you should always be asking, even if it means that you're being disruptive to other people's ways of working, because really the whole point of being disadvantaged is that you don't get a voice, and to fix that we need to be able to lift people's voices. I think that, if it's a situation where there's no opportunity for you to allow someone to speak for themselves, then you need to be really clear about how, that's not ideal and that's not comfortable, and that you're here as a sit-in. You're never going to be a perfect replacement for someone speaking out on their own issues, but you're doing it so that someone speaks, and I think that should be a last resort wherever it can be.
Yes, I take a somewhat different view to this issue of leaders speaking on behalf of disadvantaged groups. My own view is that leaders in international development should be speaking principally on behalf of their own organisation and the mandate that their own organisation has. The role of a leader in terms of speaking on behalf of others is a very contentious and can be quite a tricky and dangerous area to move into. My preferred approach is to speak on behalf of my own organisation, but also to do so in a way that facilitates, if you like, the beneficiaries that we are seeking to work with to have their own voice. So rather than speaking on behalf of others, disadvantaged groups, I tend to develop models that enable those groups themselves to speak on their own behalf. That can be done in a range of ways, including working jointly with representative organisations of disadvantaged people. It can be done through how you refer to those people's desires and aspirations in how you articulate your work, rather than seeking to speak on behalf of others.
So there's a question when you work for an organisation like Oxfam about how do you speak on behalf of poor people around the world. And my first point is we don't. I disagree with the premise that NGOs speak on behalf of poor people, because poor people speak on behalf of poor people, not NGOs and not anybody else. So I think the legitimacy, such as it is, of an organisation like Oxfam comes from listening to poor people, from respecting them and their experience and trying to reflect it, from helping them speak and have their voice heard, from rigorous, authentic research onto the background of these issues that poor people identify. But I think it's a really dangerous path to start saying we speak on behalf of someone. I actually have had experiences of people saying things like, so what do Africans think about something? And I just think that is such a misleading, ill-informed and frankly stupid question.
The issue of legitimacy in leadership is very important. Or legitimacy when you're working, when you want to represent other groups. Who are you? For me, you cannot be legitimate if you don't have followers. Who are you representing? So I've always been keen for me within my roles to know that I have to always consult. If I am given the opportunity or the privilege to speak on behalf of others, It's not about what I think. I have always gone to the extent of consulting and finding out, okay, people, for whatever reason, I've been given this opportunity to represent your views. What is it that you want me to speak about? What is it that you want me to represent? It has never been about what I think, but I have always gone to the level of finding out what is it that you want me to speak on your behalf. So whether I have captured stories or whether they're thoughts through stories or reading texts or speaking one-to-one to people so that I have a clear idea in terms of what it is that I should speak about, that has been an important element for me. I recognize that even as a leader, it's just not about me. It's about other people. For me, leadership is representation in that sense. So I am representing you. But what does legitimacy mean? I cannot move forward unless I have people that I am working with. If I go forward to meetings or opportunities and present my own views, those are my views, and in no way represent the larger community or the larger interest groups or stakeholders that you're working with. So consultation for me is very important in terms of legitimacy. But even in that element of consultation, you need to consult to the right group of people. So who are you speaking to? So if you're representing a particular constituency, are they the right people in that constituency to give you an idea or feedback in terms of what's happening at the actual level? So you need to have it right. You need to know that who you're consulting with are actually the right people that you need to consult with at the end of the day. So for me, that has been very important, and taking feedback back and saying, this is what happened. I went to this forum. I gave you views as we consulted before. This is what has come out of it, and taking back the feedback loop to the people that you are representing. That has been always very important in terms of my way of working, because I'm not alone. I am representing other people in that sense.